when a man feels most tired of life is often the moment he is closest to the doorway he has been seeking for years. Fatigue is a disguise. Behind it stands opportunity. Behind it stands the next version of you. Look honestly at yourself for a moment. You have carried burdens that others know nothing about. You have endured disappointments that would have broken weaker men. You have worked, hoped, tried, and yet tonight your heart feels worn. That is not failure. That is evidence that you have not quit. And as long as a man refuses to quit, he stands undefeated, no matter how tired he feels. Think of the man who digs 3 feet from gold and walks away because the dirt grew heavy, because the work felt endless, because his hands burned and his mind told him, "This is pointless." He was not beaten by the earth itself. He was beaten by fatigue. Had he endured 1 hour more, he would have uncovered a fortune that would have reshaped his life. Fatigue is the last barrier before victory. You believe you are tired of life, but you are not tired of life. You are tired of living below what you know you were meant to be. You are tired of repeating the same year. You are tired of seeing your promise unused. A man is not weary because life is hard. He is weary because he knows he was made for more than the life he is currently living. Let me speak to the part of you that has not given up, the part that still imagines a better life even when your present one feels unbearable. That small spark inside you is not naive. It is accurate. It sees further than your doubts. It sees further than your tiredness. It sees the future that belongs to you if you will refuse to collapse now. Look ahead 1 year. If you quit today, you repeat this same tired version of yourself, the same frustration, the same fear, the same cycle. But if you endure, if you push through this one season, your entire life bends in a different direction. A single year of persistence can accomplish what 10 years of drifting never could. I want you to imagine the people who depend on you, your family, your future children, the ones who trust you even when you cannot trust yourself. What happens to them if you quit now? Their future shrinks with yours. What happens if you push through? Their future expands because one man in the family decided to break the pattern. Your persistence becomes their inheritance. The world has lied to you. It told you rest would fix your exhaustion. It told you comfort would fix it. It told you to escape, to numb, to wait. But a tired soul does not need escape. It needs purpose. It needs a definite aim. A mind without purpose becomes weary because it has no direction for its power to flow. A mind fixed upon a definite aim becomes energized, no matter how heavy the past has been. You are one decision away from feeling alive again. Not a miracle, not a rescue, a decision. The decision that you will not drift anymore, the decision that you will write your purpose on paper and read it aloud night and morning until it becomes the controlling picture of your life. Fatigue cannot survive in the presence of definiteness. Let me tell you a truth you may not want to hear. You are not allowed to quit yet. You have not exhausted your strength. You have only exhausted your current chapter. There is a difference. The chapter is tired. You are not. You are simply being pushed into a new one. And the door to that new chapter opens only for the man who refuses to quit inside the old one. Think of the men who changed history: Ford, Edison, Lincoln, Carnegie. Not one of them escaped this hour you are living. Each of them reached a moment where life pressed on their spirit, where everything seemed slow, where the mind whispered, "Why continue?" And each of them answered the same way, by holding on 1 more hour. That hour made them giants. That same hour stands in front of you now. You do not need motivation. You need a command. Here is the command. Do not quit. Not today. Not now. Not at the edge of the possibility you have been seeking. You may rest, but you may not retreat. You may pause, but you may not surrender. You may bend, but you must not break. Every man who ever became extraordinary passed through this same narrow gate. You say you are tired of life, but I promise you this. Once you endure this season, once you obey your purpose with a firmness that does not bend, once you choose decision over doubt, this very life you are tired of will be the life you look back on with gratitude, because it was the struggle that created the man you were supposed to become. Listen to me now, not casually, not as entertainment. Listen like your future is listening through you. What you decide in this moment will echo through every year ahead of you. Lift your head, square your shoulders, breathe, and speak these words until they take root in your soul. I will not quit. I will not surrender. I will persist until life obeys my purpose. Now the fatigue you feel is no longer an enemy. It is a sign that you are close, too close to quit, too close to fall, too close to turn back. Endure this hour, and you step into a life your tiredness has kept hidden from you. Endure this hour, and you discover that you are not tired of life. You are tired of living beneath the man you were meant to be, and that ends today. Part E, the hour when a man grows weary. There comes an hour in every man's journey when the weight of his own thoughts grows heavier than the labor of his hands, when the spirit whispers its protest against a life too narrow for its true design, and that whisper is often mistaken for weakness, when in truth it is the signal of an approaching change. Fatigue of the body is simple to understand, for it comes from labor and is relieved by rest, but the fatigue you now feel rises from a deeper chamber of your nature, and no amount of sleep or distraction will remove it, for it is the tiredness of a man who has lived too long beneath the measure of the power within him. The spirit becomes weary when it has outgrown the boundaries of its present life, when the tools you use no longer match the work you are meant to do. And though you may not yet understand this inner pressure, it is life forcing you to rise to a greater plane than the one you now occupy. A man often hears two voices within him during such seasons, one that bids him stand firm and another that tempts him to sink back into the shadows. And the tragedy of life is that most men obey the voice of exhaustion, while the voice of truth grows faint from being ignored. There is a law in human nature which few men recognize, a law that presses upon the soul whenever he attempts to remain small. And when that pressure grows intense, he misreads it as failure, not knowing that life is simply denying him the comfort of stagnation. The tiredness you carry is not the tiredness of defeat, but the tiredness of transition. For every man who has ever risen from obscurity to greatness has passed through this same lonely field, wondering if the strength of his spirit was about to give way under the strain of unfulfilled desire. Abraham Lincoln walked through such darkness, enduring seasons when every door seemed shut and every effort mocked him. Yet he held himself together with a firmness known only to men who refuse to accept the verdict of temporary circumstance, and it was from the depth of that fatigue that his finest decisions later emerged. Henry Ford knew this hour as well, for he worked through ridicule and repeated disappointment while shaping the first crude model of his machine, laboring late into the night when his strength was thin and his resources thinner. Yet he pressed on because something within him insisted that the vision was near at hand. Most men abandon their hopes not because they are incapable or unworthy, but because they mistake this final hour of pressure for the end, never realizing that it is the last hill before the valley breaks open, the last resistance before their purpose becomes visible. Success retreats from the man who drifts, for drifting multiplies weariness by scattering the power of the mind. And no man can handle the weight of life when his thought moves without direction. But definiteness gathers the forces of the spirit like a lens gathers sunlight and turns it into fire. The more a man wanders, the heavier his days become, for fatigue is not born from effort but from aimlessness. And nothing wears a man down so quickly as the knowledge that he is using strength without touching progress, wasting days that could hold meaning if only his purpose were fixed. The voice of discouragement is subtle, for it does not command a man to quit. It merely whispers that nothing will change, and that whisper works like rust upon steel, weakening the will by slow degrees until the man surrenders without realizing he has surrendered. Every man who has lived close to his own greatness has felt that whisper and stood at this same crossroads, and the difference between those who rise and those who fall is simple. The first recognize this whisper as a test, while the second interpret it as a prophecy. I have observed men who seem near collapse regain their power merely by altering their belief. For the moment a man declares within himself that he will not stop, the mind gathers itself, the heart steadies, and the spirit rekindles the flame that fatigue had nearly smothered. Speak within yourself words of command, not complaint, for the mind obeys the tone you use when addressing it. And you may rouse dormant strength by declaring with full conviction that your hour has not yet come to fall, and that you were made for a greater future than your present weariness suggests. Say within yourself, I hold fast to my purpose, I turn my back upon doubt, I stand firm in the storm, I command life to obey the vision I have chosen, and though my strength may be tested, my spirit remains unbroken and unbreakable. The world judges a man by the way he carries himself when under strain, and though you may not feel strong in this hour, others will begin to sense a change in you the moment you refuse to bow before pressure, for there is a quiet glow in the eyes of the man who has chosen to endure. You will notice this shift yourself, for the more you hold your ground, the more your step steadies, the more your voice deepens, and the more your mind rests upon a single direction instead of wandering in circles as it did during the season of drifting. A man does not always announce his transformation. Often it announces itself through his bearing, through the calmness of his speech, through the steadfastness of his decision.